I don't want to do this video. Today we're talking all about RSD. Hello, hello. If you don't know me already, my name is Shay. I'm a late diagnosed autistic and ADHD adult, and I created this channel so that I could learn to understand myself a little bit better. And hopefully, by sharing my experiences, you will see some of your own experiences reflected in mine and be able to learn something too. As I mentioned earlier, today we're talking a little bit about RSD, which I am very hesitant to do because RSD is something that is not so fun to talk about for me because I have it. I do not like rejection at all. But we are going to reframe this today, or at least try to. I'm going to share my own experiences with RSD, both from the past and the present. And I also am going to share a method that I am using to actually be able to tackle my RSD in the present. And so stick around to the end of this video if you want to hear about that. Okay, rejection sensitive dysphoria. Let's just talk about what that is. So, RSD is not something that you can be formally diagnosed with. However, it is an intense reaction or intense sensitivity to either real or perceived rejection. And that's like the key for me is perceived. It doesn't even necessarily have to be a real rejection in front of you. You just perceive that there is rejection and you have this really intense reaction. A lot of people who have either autism and or ADHD do experience RSD, and there's a whole bunch of reasons why that is. It could be the issues with emotional regulation. It could be your experiences of feeling different and othered by your peers. And there are different resources that kind of talk about why RSD is a thing for a lot of autistic and ADHD people. But that's not what we're talking about today. We're just talking about our experiences and this is really just a video to share my own experiences with RSD and also how I am managing it today as a YouTuber, which is really crazy for me to say. So I have always been incredibly sensitive to any kind of rejection, whether it's real or perceived. I grew up as the little girl who would just cry if you looked at me the wrong way. And because of that sensitivity, I walked a really straight and narrow path and I did not take a lot of risks and I kind of kept to myself. Really, I believe that my rejection sensitive dysphoria is what led to a lot of my masking, a lot of my pretending to be someone I'm not because I'm so afraid of being the outcast. And I know that a lot of people who are late diagnosed autistic or ADHD have this experience of being bullied a lot growing up. And that was actually not my experience because I made myself so small and quiet and I really just kept to myself and morphed into whatever surroundings I was in, really chameleoned myself into my surroundings. I kind of flew under the radar and I didn't really get bullied, at least not to my knowledge. And while this is great that I didn't get bullied, it also had some negative effects. So, obviously, one of the negative effects of masking is that I went undiagnosed and I didn't receive a lot of the support that I could have gotten had I expressed who I was a little bit more. But also, by not expressing who I was fully, because I was so afraid of this rejection, I ended up not being seen for who I was to the point where I didn't even know who I was. I hid myself from not only everyone else but from myself. I grew up into my adulthood not really knowing what I liked, what path I wanted to take, what career I wanted to have. I didn't know a lot of what really interests me because I tamped all that down to fit in because I was so afraid that if I expressed who I was, I would be rejected. People would make fun of me. I would be bullied. I had this inner sense that I was different from other people. I was on the school newspaper in high school. We got to write these articles as seniors. Basically, just anything we wanted to write. It could be like, thank you so much for such a great high school experience or whatever. A lot of people wrote articles like that. And I was like, this is going to be my chance to finally be seen, for people to finally know the real me, because I was just a ghost. I was a ghost throughout school. Like, people either didn't notice me at all, or if they did notice me, they just knew that I was that quiet girl in the corner who didn't really speak. And I wrote all these things about myself, with all these confessions about who I was. A lot of it was like, here are the things that I'm obsessed with. I still sleep with a blankie type thing. That's my sensory safe object. I just really wanted to be seen. And, making that confessional article for my school newspaper did not have the same effect that I was looking for. In fact, I handed it off to another editor and I said, I don't know what to title this. Like, you title it. And they titled it "Editor Opens Up to Her Weird Side." And that was like really like kind of a hit. I'm like, yeah, I guess these things are weird, but that's not that. Ultimately, I think what I was doing in that article was I wanted to see if there were other neurodivergent people out there. Even though I didn't know that I was autistic or ADHD, I wanted to see if there were others like me. And so that brings me to where I am today, making a YouTube channel, putting myself out there, actively opening myself up to rejection, literally on a day-to-day basis. I'm kind of like, why? And I think it goes back to that wanting so desperately to be seen and understood for who I am. And also hoping that by allowing myself to be seen, others will connect and relate and show themselves to me. That has been my experience so far. I have received so many comments about people saying that they relate so much to my experiences, which is just like, it's mind boggling, because I grew up feeling so alone in my experience, feeling like I was an alien. And I know that a lot of autistic and ADHD people have this experience as well, where they feel like they were just dropped from a spaceship and they're not meant to be here on this planet, until they find the community of people who feel just the way that they do. So anyway, that's why I am opening myself up to rejection. But that doesn't make the RSD go away. In fact, every single time I get a notification for a comment, I am bracing myself for the worst. And honestly, I think I've received one mean comment. And I know that it's bound to happen again. When you put yourself out there, you're bound to face rejection. You're never going to be liked by everybody, and not everyone is going to agree with everything that you do. And there are just some mean people out there who want to take it out on other people as well. So all those things are possible, and I'm ready. Well, I'm becoming ready. I'm preparing myself for the inevitable rejection. But why am I doing it? No, we already talked about that. It's because I want to be seen and understood, and I want to see and understand other people in the community. Okay, glad we got that covered. This is Reggie, by the way. My flamingo, I just got him recently and I love him. I am reintroducing stuffies into my life because I thought that, just like my sensory pillowy, I thought that I had to grow out of stuffies, but really having this soft little flamingo guy is really nice for me. And I really like flamingos ever since I watched Planet Earth. There was this episode, and I won't talk about it because it's very sad, and I don't want to trigger anybody who loves animals as much as I do. But if you know, you know, there was a baby flamingo, something happened, it was very sad. And so ever since I watched that, I was like, love flamingos, I love them all. Okay, so I tried to record this video once before, and I thought, oh, I don't really know how to handle RSD, so I'm gonna make this video where I kind of research how to handle RSD and we learn together. The only thing is that there isn't a whole lot of resources on RSD. And so a lot of the advice was like, get a therapist, work on your self esteem, feel better about yourself, say positive affirmations in the mirror. And as an ADHD girl who wants very quick reward for for doing things, it was like working on my self-esteem. Sure, I'm all for that, but that's not going to help me in the moment of feeling rejection. So I kind of got frustrated. I put that video away and I just wallowed a little bit. And that brings me to how I'm handling RSD and how I've learned to handle RSD. So I'm going to use this analogy of, you ever been on a playground and somebody's on the swings and you're walking by and you don't yet know to walk around that person, and so they kick you over and then you fall down and you're like, ow. When a child gets hurt, if you are a good parent, you're not going to say, why did you do that? Why would you walk in front of the what they do first is they console the child. They give them a hug. They say, oh, I know, honey, that must have hurt. Oh my goodness. For the child in that moment, it feels like the end of the world. And as the parent, you would know, okay, they're okay. I checked them out. They're fine. They're just scared. They were just startled by the experience. Maybe their butt hurts a little bit. They skin their knee. But for them, it does feel like the end of the world. And so you console them and you help them to get through that. The first thing that I am doing to handle my RSD is really to just allow myself to feel what I feel. Whether or not I was actually rejected, whether it's real or perceived rejection, it doesn't matter. In that moment, it does feel like life or death. And so, really, just consoling myself. And the way that I do this is to allow myself to feel the feelings, to cry, to talk it out with a safe person, to snuggle with Marcus, to have stuffies and really like just put on a safe show or listen to a song that's really soothing. It's really to just let myself feel sorry for myself for a little bit, because I know that if I try to skip over that step and I try to say, well, let's figure this out, when I don't give myself the space to actually feel the feeling, I stuff it down, and then it just builds this extra layer that prevents me from going and taking risks in the future. I think I mentioned I received one mean-ish comment on my YouTube channel, and it kind of sent me in a little spiral. And rather than going straight into, okay, why am I feeling sorry? How can I fix this? What can I do? I just needed really to just wallow a little bit, give that little child within me a hug and say, it's okay, honey. It's going to be okay. I know it hurts, but it's going to be okay, Reggie. So that's the first thing. Then is when I try to understand it. I'm able to look at it more objectively. So this isn't necessarily about fixing it. It's not necessarily about, oh, well, how do I get rid of my rejection sensitive dysphoria? It's really to just use it as a learning experience. So going back to that metaphor of the kid getting kicked by the person on the swing, after the kid is consoled, then they might go into the whole like learning part of the experience, where it's like, now in the future, instead of walking right up against the person who's swinging, you can kind of give a wider berth, like walk around it a little bit. Okay, so now I've learned something from that experience. I know what I'm going to take away from it. I might be a little bit more careful when I'm walking by the swings. In my case, this was really just about understanding why that comment got to me so much. And I like to do this method of kind of asking myself why over and over again. This is another thing that kids do that really is helpful when you're trying to get curious about a situation, by answering the question and then continuing to ask why to get to like the deeper root of it. In this case, I have learned that mean comments ultimately get to me more so when I believe them a little bit more. So it's like if somebody said to me, you have brown eyes, that would not affect me at all, because I know that that's not true. I know that I have blue eyes. So it wouldn't like bother me if somebody said that I had brown eyes, because I would just say, okay, you're wrong, and then move on with it and just think that person doesn't know what they're talking about. And I don't say this to victim blame for somebody saying something mean to me, but I do think it's really helpful for me to understand when comments affect me more, because I feel like I can understand, oh, there might be something about that that I believe is true. For me, it helps me and it kind of gives me a little bit of a dopamine hit when I come to that conclusion and I say, oh, this is something that I have internalized. I don't even need to understand at that point why I've internalized it. I can go down that rabbit hole if I'm ready to go down that rabbit hole, but I don't have to. Just understanding helps me, and kind of gives me a sense of accomplishment for realizing that and accepting that. From there, I can take action. I can build in some boundaries. I can sign up for therapy. I can journal about this particular thing that I feel about myself. I can take actions toward it. But for me, just learning about it, just understanding it a little bit more gives me that sense of check the box. I learned something from this experience. Okay, we can move on now. So the child falls down, skins their knee, we console them, we help them to learn the lesson. Then what do? They go back and play, ideally. They don't just say, oh, well, I fell on the playground once, so I'm never ever going to a playground ever again. In my scenario of getting a mean comment on YouTube, I could say, all right, well, I'm never going to make another YouTube video ever again, because then that's opening the door to mean comments. And I could do that. I lived most of my life doing that by playing small. But as I've mentioned earlier, I don't want to do that. I don't want to play small. And so I'm going to continue to do this. But it's worth mentioning that when you have a negative experience, I may not feel so keen to just jump right on back into YouTube. And I think personally, I think that's okay. I think after I've comforted myself, after I've gotten curious about the reason why it affected me so much, I think maybe taking a step in the direction of joy is the right step, but it doesn't necessarily have to be that exact thing. The kid who just got kicked by the swings may not want to go near the swings for a little while, and I think that's okay. But they can try out the slide, they can try out the monkey bars, they can try something else that is joy adjacent that can give them a sense of happiness, of lightness, of something that kind of helps them to move forward. For me, this was not jumping right back on YouTube. We just had Halloween. Halloween is a huge special interest of mine. So it was getting dressed up for Halloween and celebrating that. One of my favorite little bands that I still love, I'm trying to minimize it, Big Time Rush. And I don't know if there are any rushers out there, but oh my gosh, if there are, I'm just gonna scream. It's a boy band from Nickelodeon, and they just re-released this song, and I played it on repeat in the car, and I just kind of jammed out to it. And so that brought me a lot of joy. It had nothing to do with YouTube, but by moving on from that rejection, by doing something that brought me joy, it helped to move that energy into something else. So I wasn't just ruminating on the rejection. And I think that doing all three of these things, comforting, getting curious, and then doing something fun, going back to play, to create, they're all really important. Speaking from my own experience, if I just jumped into, oh, well, I'm just going to bring myself joy, I feel like that is sort of bypassing the pain. So it's important for me to comfort myself first. And it's important for me to get curious about why it happened, because I don't want the rejection to feel like it was all for nothing. I hope that this helped. I hope it wasn't too rambly. I also hope that this isn't a how to for you. I think if this helps you, take what works for you, leave the rest. If you have other ways that you deal with your rejection sensitive dysphoria, please leave them in the comments. I'm here to learn. I'm here to really understand myself and others like me more. And if you watched to the end of this video, I just want to say thank you, thank you, thank you so much for being here. I know that your time is so, so valuable, and I do not take it lightly that you choose to spend it with me. And if you watched all the way to the end of this video, please leave a flamingo emoji for Reginald. And if you're enjoying this channel, please subscribe, please share it with a friend. And I can't wait to see you on the next one. Hopefully, we will be talking about a topic that's a little bit, more fun. More fun. Okay. Anyway, I will see you on the next one.